Imagine waking up. You're groggy, you're disoriented, and you're in this meticulously neat bedroom.
Right.
You have no idea where you are, but you quickly realize the windows are barred. Heavy, black, wrought iron bars.
And you try the door?
You try the door, it's locked. And then a woman appears, and she delivers this blunt, cold truth that's going to define your next 3 years. She says, "We're 70 miles from the nearest neighbor, and nobody knows you're here. You stay and work, or you get dead."
It is the absolute ultimate moment of strategic terror. It's designed to just extinguish all hope immediately.
Right.
The coldness of that threat, delivered in such sterile surroundings, that's the organization's signature move. It's absolute control, just masked by this superficial order.
And that profound moment of powerlessness that's our entry point for our deep dive today. Our source material is this incredibly comprehensive narrative detailing the ordeal of Beatrice Meadows, a young woman kidnapped from Kansas City and held for 3 grueling years in a remote, specialized facility run by an organization referred to only as they.
And just for clarity, as we unpack this really complex story, you'll want to track a few key names and aliases.
Okay.
We have our principal hostage, Beatrice Meadows. We also have Isabel, who's sometimes called Brittany. She's the primary manager on site.
Got it.
And crucially, we have the groundskeeper, Aiden, whose real name is Bernest Eubank.
Okay.
So our mission today is to trace Beatrice's journey. We're going to analyze the insidious selection process used by her captors, the terrifying psychological dynamics of survival inside this closed system.
The resistance she mounted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the ultimate necessary violence that was required to achieve her freedom, and then this really ambiguous reckoning that followed.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start right at the beginning. How did Beatrice Meadows become the perfect target for a high-level trafficking operation? When we first meet Beatrice, the description of her is kind of contradictory.
It is.
She is intensely bright. I mean, she's a college graduate, fluent in Spanish, French, Korean, and German, and she had studied Russian and Mandarin on top of that.
It's an incredible skill set, highly valuable.
And yet her personal life is just in a total crisis. She's dealing with severe financial instability. She's become homeless after a startup failed, and a breakup with her ex, Riley, who left her with thousands of dollars in unpaid rent.
And that specific combination, high intelligence paired with this severe emotional and financial exposure, that's what the narrative identifies as the critical vulnerability.
Right.
She had what they call the Bambi complex.
The Bambi complex, that phrase is so loaded. Can you elaborate on why that was so appealing to her captors and sort of how it was rooted in her past?
Well, it relates to this deep-seated desire not to be perceived as a victim or, a sucker. The narrative traces this back to an anecdote where her own father dismissed her as weak after she gave her coat away to someone in need.
Oh.
And Riley, her ex, he also successfully exploited this emotional generosity. So Beatrice is internally fighting this sucker label, but she consistently positions herself in ways that can be exploited by people who appear to need help or offer a connection.
So for an organization like they, who rely entirely on assessing and leveraging weakness.
She was an ideal target. I mean, her intellectual value was completely secondary to her psychological availability.
It's just a terrifying application of social engineering, and that assessment was executed by the person who lured her in, a woman named Talia.
Right.
And Talia doesn't fit the visual profile of a predator at all. She's described as being between 50 and 60, wearing a typical sweater set and gold jewelry. This intentional normalcy must have been part of the trap.
Absolutely. The lure was meticulously crafted to address Beatrice's specific immediate needs, and those were not just monetary. Talia approached her in a coffee shop with the promise of a job, yes,
Okay.
but the deeper transaction was emotional. Talia spent time just listening to Beatrice's confessions of this profound loneliness, the stinging reality of constant job rejections despite her academic achievements.
And the alienation from her family.
That's right.
She actively facilitated this emotional intimacy. The source even notes that Beatrice played the most recent judgmental voicemail she had received from her father for Talia.
And that is the pivotal moment of vulnerability. By sharing that intensely private piece of pain, Beatrice lowered her defenses entirely. She started viewing Talia as a confidant.
Which made the drugged coffee, delivered shortly after, feel less like a street crime.
And more like the ultimate shattering betrayal of trust. It was an exploitation of her fundamental need for connection, transforming it into the means of her abduction.
A psychological trap so profound that the physical trap almost becomes an afterthought. The office turned into a car ride, and she woke up on August 25th, 2017, just in a state of physical misery. Nausea, disorientation, and this dark, thumping pain behind her eye from the drug.
And the physical environment immediately reinforces that psychological terror.
Yeah.
It's not a dungeon, it's a house attempting to be domestic.
Right.
We get the detail of the yellow and peach tile bathroom and the thick patterned rug over hardwood floors. It's all trying to convey this false sense of comfort.
But the underlying reality is brutally institutional.
Exactly. Black wrought iron bars cover the windows in both the bedroom and the bathroom.
And crucially, the view outside. A fenced yard with nothing but dense trees beyond. It confirms the total rural isolation that Isabel mentions later. She checks the second door locked. The cage is complete.
Yes, and that initial interaction with Isabel, the floor manager, it just solidifies the rules. Isabel is in her early 40s, olive-skinned, and she's deceptively casual in jeans and a gray cardigan.
But she is the cold, cynical administrator of the house.
And the taser, hidden in her pocket, that's the silent promise of violence behind the facade of a conversation. The message isn't negotiated, it's decreed. You stay in work or you get dead.
The organization doesn't even bother with pretense once she's inside. It's just straight to the ultimatum.
So we have Isabel, who we learn is also known as Brittany, as the primary authority, described as irritable and cynical.
Right. She's the enforcer who manages the daily routine. And she relies on the raw power of the movers or goons. And we eventually learn their names: Gustav, Laszlo, Napoleon, and Todd. All of them are these powerfully built men who serve as the physical threat.
The structure of the captivity is just designed for maximum control and depersonalization. Beatrice is confined to a specific zone, her area, the second floor.
Which includes her room, the kids' rooms, the laundry, the dining room, and the classroom.
And this physical restriction immediately limits her scope of thought and movement.
The security measures are also this weird mix of high-tech surveillance and old-school institutional containment. It's almost reminiscent of a psychiatric facility.
Precisely. The doors are locked with 3 sliding steel bars, almost asylum-like, making any internal movement impossible without a key.
And the logistical system for food is critical.
Yes, the meals are delivered via a dumbwaiter hidden inside a cabinet in the dining room. This removes the necessity of human contact for basic sustenance, ensuring the captors maintain control over every single point of entry and exit. It minimizes opportunities for communication or escape.
It turns her existence into a transactional, automated process.
It does.
And in this environment that's designed to erase identity, Beatrice immediately engages in this subtle act of resistance. She finds a pencil and begins documenting her ordeal in the margins of a novel she grabs from the classroom shelf, Little Dorrit.
And that act of choosing Little Dorrit, a novel about life in a debtor's prison, is symbolic in itself.
I didn't even think of that.
Documenting the date of her abduction, August 25, 2017, it grounds her in reality. It's a quiet way of fighting back, of saying, you can control my body, but you won't erase my timeline or my identity?
But Isabel is so quick to respond to any sign of independence. The removal of her pockets, just cutting the bottoms out of her pants. That seems like such a small, almost pointless act of cruelty, but the source really emphasizes its importance.
It's not about practical security at all. It's purely symbolic disarmament. Well, pockets are where we hold things we value, things we keep private, things we might use for trade or escape, a note, a coin, a button. By physically removing the bottoms of the pockets, Isabel symbolizes that Beatrice has no capacity for privacy, no right to hold anything that is exclusively hers, and that she is under continuous, total surveillance.
It's an immediate, chilling message of helplessness.
Absolutely.
And the population of this house expands quickly. Only 2 days after Beatrice arrives, Nestor, an 8-year-old boy, is brought in. He's terrified, and he's trying to cope by pretending to be asleep.
His arrival introduces the high-stakes nature of the organization's true business. The visual evidence of his trauma is stark. Bruises, scratches, and these dark purple welts which strongly imply drug injection, likely to keep him compliant or subdue him during transport.
And his clothing is stained with someone else's blood, confirming he witnessed violence. Beatrice's innate protective instincts, they kick in immediately. She transitions from this raw victim to a caregiver.
Right. She realizes she can only communicate with him in Spanish, making her language skills essential for the first time in her captivity.
And she cleans him up, but her defiance goes further. She hides a newspaper and bullet casings in her closet.
And this is a crucial development. She's not just surviving anymore. She is consciously collecting intelligence and evidence for a future she hopes for.
But Nestor's background is clearly high-level, political or economic ransom.
Right. His father is Mr. Minister, and the mention of a pipeline suggests geopolitical or massive financial stakes. This isn't just a random kidnapping.
He is forced to wear a navy blue suit for video calls with his father, which just underscores the formality of the whole transaction.
And the control mechanisms used on Nestor are just heartbreakingly sophisticated. During the video calls, Beatrice is forced to whisper the single word tutora, tutor to him, which acts as this strange signifier to his father that the process is moving according to script.
But the true depth of the psychological horror is revealed when Nestor explains that they forced him to watch video of his own kidnapping.
This is the weaponization of trauma. The captors aren't just relying on the terror of the moment. They are reinforcing past terror to ensure total obedience in the present and future.
So by showing him the video,
they remind him exactly what they are capable of, and they ensure that the terror he felt on day one is permanently accessible, making compliance the only rational choice for a child. This technique proves that they are not just violent. They are highly skilled psychological manipulators.
So the environment settles into this forced, bizarre routine centered around the classroom. It's described as looking like the early 20th century heavy, dark wood desks, an outdated map covering a chalkboard.
But stocked with brand new workbooks. And of course, the bars are always present on the windows.
The classroom is where Beatrice channels her formidable intellect into structure. By teaching Nestor, primarily in Spanish, she's performing this crucial psychological service for both of them.
Right. It maintains intellectual engagement, which is such a powerful defense against mental deterioration and isolation. They are creating a little pocket of normalcy within the abnormal.
And their coping mechanisms are wonderfully defiant. Beyond academics, they engage in physical activity, calisthenics from a 1954 U.S. Army book, and dancing. Specifically, the choreography to Beyoncé's Single Ladies, put a ring on it.
You really can't overstate the importance of these small, absurd acts of resistance.
Right.
The calisthenics impose physical discipline and exhaustion necessary for sleep. The dancing, though, is pure mental liberation. It's a shared secret, a reminder of the outside world, and an injection of joy and connection that they cannot fully control. It's what keeps them from being reduced entirely to their status as hostages.
This routine is occasionally punctured by the presence of Aidan, or Bernest Eubank, the groundskeeper. He's introduced mowing the lawn, described as unnecessarily good-looking, blonde, crew-cut, young, the only piece of normal outside their bars.
And Beatrice instinctively tries to engage him, yelling, "Hello!" through the bars, hoping for a savior.
And their first physical interaction is charged. She puts her hand through the fence. He shakes it.
Which is a risk on his part, and a moment of desperate human contact for her. But when she questions him about escape, he defaults to the standard defense. I'm just the groundskeeper. He maintains that distance, blurring the line between captive and collaborator.
Yet he offers these small kindnesses, like the brand new soccer ball found in the yard, which they strongly suspect he provided. He's deliberately injecting some humanity into the system.
He is testing the boundaries of his own compliance. But Beatrice is simultaneously planning a far greater risk. When Nestor develops a dangerous abscessed tooth and a high fever, it forces Isabel to summon a dentist via helicopter, and Beatrice sees her window.
She folds a crucial distress note into a swan, and while receiving a fluoride treatment herself, which is just a bizarre moment of medical surrealism, she successfully slips the note into the dentist's scrub pocket.
It's a calculated high-risk move that required immense composure.
But the resulting failure is devastating, and its consequences are brutal.
Isabel returns the swan note. It crushes Beatrice's hope and confirms that the dentist is compensated enough to prioritize compliance over human life. Beatrice learns that money, in this world, buys silence absolutely.
And the punishment is horrific. It's designed to humiliate and destroy her will.
She is stripped naked and forced to scrub the front foyer floor with a mop bucket until her knees are dark purple. This is about total psychological and physical subjugation. It reinforces the central lesson that no one who enters this compound, not the movers, not the dentist, not even the good-looking groundskeeper, is going to save her.
Her reliance must be entirely on herself.
Exactly.
The hostage group continues to grow, increasing the burden of responsibility on Beatrice. Minu, a small toddler, arrives in a duffel bag, delivered by Laszlo, still wearing a filthy pink-footed onesie.
And the contrast here is so bizarre. Isabel, the administrator of horror, provides Minu with personalized, colorful clothing, rainbow leggings, pink sweaters.
What'd you make of that?
It speaks to the cognitive dissonance necessary to run such a place. Treating the child's physical needs while fundamentally destroying her life.
Then Sadiq arrives, a 14-year-old teenage boy who resists violently inside a heavy body bag. He speaks almost perfect English and Arabic and is immediately defiant, boasting that they don't scare him. He's clearly been through this before.
Sadiq introduces a new dynamic. He hints at being held in another place for 3 months previously, which gives him this sense of hardened superiority. He challenges Beatrice, questioning what a girl is going to teach me.
It's a threat to her established authority and her vital role as the tutora. And Beatrice handles it masterfully. She shuts him down, first by stumping him with a quick mental math problem, 13 times 47, and then by listing her extensive language fluency.
This confrontation serves as a necessary catalyst for her own development.
Right.
This is the moment Beatrice recognizes the limits of her Bambi complex. Her niceness, her inherent desire to nurture, is being exploited not only by her captors, but even by her fellow hostages.
So she realizes that to succeed in her ultimate goal escape, she has to fundamentally change her strategy.
Yes. The narrative highlights this chilling transformation. If I was going to escape, there were 2 groups of people I had to account for. The people I was going to save and the people I was going to have to kill.
Wow.
She is actively choosing to adopt the mindset of an oppressor to save the victims.
It's incredible that even in this environment, a relationship could begin to bloom, especially one so complicated and fraught with danger. Let's talk about Aiden and Beatrice. How did this intellectual and emotional intimacy develop under constant surveillance?
Well, it started, as many relationships do, with shared interests and intellectual connection. Aiden began lending her books from his supply-serious literary works like The Sun Also Rises and John Irving's The Hotel New Hampshire.
And they called these their book club sessions.
Exactly. They were creating an intellectual space that felt private, even though it wasn't. They were communicating identity through shared literature.
And Aiden gave her practical help, too, subtly sabotaging the surveillance.
He did. He told her that the intercom buzzes when Isabel is eavesdropping, giving them these tiny, precious windows of true privacy. He's taking measurable risks for her.
Those small pieces of actionable intelligence are vital.
And the risk escalated when he began revealing his own history. He confirmed Beatrice's suspicions. He's not just an employee, he's a prisoner too. He says, yeah, that's how it works.
And he was kidnapped at age 11 from a fair.
Right. And he has been controlled by they longer than he lived with his parents. His Louisiana accent is almost entirely gone, which is just evidence of the system scrubbing away his original identity.
That's horrifying. He was taken as a child. Can you walk us through the stages of his captivity? I mean, especially the roles of host and finesse.
Certainly. His first role was as a host, which means he was forced into prostitution at a facility they referred to as a palace. He remained in this role until he was no longer deemed host material, likely due to aging or just the psychological toll affecting his attractiveness or compliance. His survival mechanism was complete emotional detachment learning to shut stuff off.
But the organization found a way to utilize his interpersonal skills after that. He became a finesse. That sounds even more insidious.
It is. The finesse is essentially a pimp or a recruiter. Aiden's job was to specifically target vulnerable runaways or individuals, date them, build trust, and then coerce them into working for they by convincing them to do some clients to prove their love or loyalty.
It's exploitation built on emotional betrayal.
It is.
Yet he confesses that he consistently sabotaged this role, saying he couldn't pull the trigger on using others. He had a line he wouldn't cross.
And that failure to fully comply is why he ended up as the groundskeeper. He sees this current assignment, which he chillingly refers to as being a deer, as a relative freedom. He gets to be outside, read his books, and critically, he doesn't have to engage in the sexual exploitation of clients or other victims. This provides the context for his complex behavior toward Beatrice. He understands her victimhood because he lived it, and he sees her as a reflection of the person he wished he could still be.
This complexity culminates in an incredible high-stakes moment of emotional vulnerability. In a book he lends her, he writes a note revealing his full, true identity.
Yes, the note. For Beatrice, who reminds me that I am not as good a person as I would like to be, and who feels like the sun in the middle of winter. Keep passing the open windows. Bernest.
So this confirms his true name, Bernest Eubank.
It does. And the choice of language is so profound. He views her as a moral compass, the sun in the middle of winter, reminding him of his compromised humanity. And that final line, keep passing the open windows, is a reference to a John Irving novel. It's a shared code of quiet rebellion and an encouragement to maintain hope.
The relationship then progresses rapidly from intellectual to physical intimacy, but even this is constrained by their shared captivity. Their contact kissing, neck and throat touching, it's all limited and under this constant threat of discovery.
And this is where the dynamic becomes intensely transactional for Beatrice. For Aidan, it's a genuine emotional reconnection after years of forced emotional shutoff.
But for Beatrice...
For Beatrice, while there are feelings, the source emphasizes she views this intimacy as leverage. She is deliberately cultivating influence over the one person in the house who holds a degree of mobility and who has demonstrated an emotional connection to her.
It's part of her evolving survival strategy, using her appeal as a tool. This is the section of the narrative where the calculated violence of the organization just erupts. It causes massive loss and hardens Beatrice's resolve. The first tragedy is the murder of Minu, the toddler.
It's a devastating illustration of the cost of resistance. During a mealtime distraction, perhaps inspired by the joy of their dancing, Beatrice encourages Minu to run out the open back door.
And the organization's response is instantaneous and merciless.
Minu is shot immediately on the gravel.
And the aftermath is focused entirely on punishing Beatrice, not mourning the child. Gustav physically attacks her, and Isabel uses the incident as a psychological weapon. She asks if Beatrice thought it was better for Minu to freeze to death or be murdered.
Isabel is forcing Beatrice to internalize the organization's moral framework, that any action outside the rules, even a rescue attempt, results in a worse outcome. This is classic abusive manipulation designed to make the victim responsible for the failure of the system.
And Isabel's own history, which she later reveals to Beatrice, explains her cold, cynical complicity. She too was a victim of this system. She was kidnapped at 16 by her father's construction partner, Uncle Martin, and forced into hostessing at a palace.
And the detail about her younger sister, Christabel, is crucial here. Christabel was raped and killed after Isabel failed to protect her.
So that trauma
didn't break Isabel. It forced her into ruthless compliance. She survived the host role by being promoted to Empress, a manager position, but she was later demoted when she refused to handle a child hostage, which resulted in her own severe beating by movers.
So she enforces the rules because she has internalized the lesson that deviation means death or further suffering. She confesses that there is no safe place to go because they would find her.
She is a prisoner who has been given the illusion of power. It confirms that they control not just through brute force, but through irreversible moral compromise, and by ensuring that victims can't return to normalcy. Isabel is the living, breathing embodiment of the system's long reach.
The brutality escalates further with the arrival of Jackie, who is 10, from China, and her aunt Lixu. They're clearly wealthy. Lixu is presented as a replacement caregiver while Isabel is away recovering from an intense medical period.
Right. Isabel's absence, due to a mastectomy, broken ribs, and flail chest, likely from that demotion beating, creates a temporary power vacuum. Lixu is initially a caregiver, but her true purpose is as a pawn. New movers, Gustav and Napoleon, arrive, and they execute Lixu in front of Jackie.
And this was likely filmed, making it a targeted message to Jackie's family.
Absolutely. It's corporate terrorism. This isn't just about collecting a ransom. It's about proving the absolute, unhinged seriousness of the organization. They are willing to execute a high-value adult hostage to ensure compliance from the parents who are currently negotiating for the child.
It proves their threats are real and immediate. With Isabel incapacitated and the violence mounting, Beatrice implements the escape plan she's been meticulously preparing.
For weeks, she had been secretly unscrewing the window bars in Minu's empty room, hiding the heavy screws in the bathtub drain. She conceals the heavy bars behind a tricycle.
It's a testament to her calculated persistence. She waits until Isabel is away, relying on the instability created by the manager's absence. Her journey into the wilderness is immediately grueling.
It is. She walks all night, sticking to the west of the dirt road to avoid detection, running for multiple days in this unfamiliar, rugged landscape.
And the source material is full of these miserable, specific details about her journey. Getting lost, becoming soaking wet, developing hypothermia, having to hold her damaged shoe together with a glove sock.
And drinking conditioner water due to desperate thirst.
Right. She even notes seeing moose tracks, confirming the severity of this rural northern location.
This paints a picture of utter desolation. It confirms the organization chose their location strategically, relying on the environment itself to be the ultimate captor. And it's the environment that brings Aidan back into the picture. He finds her in the woods.
He finds her because he was tracking her. He reveals she missed the crucial switchback on the road.
Right.
He insists she has to return or the movers will kill her, confirming his fear is genuine. And he provides his motivation, a folded photograph of his family, his parents and 2 brothers, as his reason for complying with they.
That photograph is his life insurance policy. It shows Beatrice that his compliance is not loyalty, but self-preservation tethered to his past identity.
The return, however, is a profoundly complicated act of survival and care.
It is. He zip-ties her wrist to the truck's "oh shit" handle to prevent her from leaping out or escaping again, but he strips her wet clothes off, leaving her in her bra and panties, explicitly to prevent hypothermia.
So he is simultaneously her captor and her immediate lifesaver.
Exactly. And the consequence of the failed escape is the 3rd beating, delivered by Isabel with a dressage whip, leaving Beatrice's body like raw meat. In the aftermath, Aiden is forced to clean her wounds and pick pine needles out of her hair.
This act, cleaning the wounds caused by his employer, cements his duality.
It does. He is trapped in a role where he inflicts damage indirectly, then must tend to the damage directly, ensuring his moral compromise is inescapable.
Following the whipping, the psychological pressure just ramps up dramatically. Beatrice is designated a formal asset, given the fake name Mandy, during a video call with they, who are likely using a voice modifier.
She's now a piece of property, not just a hostage.
But the organization needs permanent leverage.
And that leverage is her family. Isabel shows Beatrice a recent photo of her estranged father, his wife, and their toddler son in front of their Maryland home.
The threat is chillingly specific. If you fuck up, if you disobey, they won't just kill you, they'll kill him too.
This is the ultimate control mechanism. It neutralizes escape by expanding the consequences beyond her own body. This knowledge convinces Beatrice that running is impossible. She has to neutralize the threat from within.
This internal pressure leads to the devastating sexual betrayal. Aiden is coerced into having sex with Beatrice in front of a hidden camera in his apartment to provide video of a crime for they to use as permanent blackmail against her.
The violation here is just layered. Beatrice feels she literally couldn't say no, her body fighting by itself against her will. Aiden is visibly distraught, trying to shut stuff off, relying on his old host coping mechanisms, but unable to fully detach.
And Isabel ensures the transaction is recorded. She interrupts only after confirming the video is secured.
Right. This act destroys any lingering innocence or moral purity Beatrice might have retained. It ensures she, too, is compromised in the eyes of the outside world, making her harder to save and trust.
The moment for the break arrives when Isabel returns from the hospital looking haggard. Her illness has weakened her control. She deletes Aiden's door code to reassert dominance, but this creates a food scarcity crisis for the children, raising the temperature in the house.
The power vacuum is ripe, and the turning point arrives during a kitchen confrontation. Gustav corners Beatrice, making these aggressively lewd, racist comments about Jackie and physically intimidating Beatrice. This is the final catalyst.
She grabs the smallest paring knife from the magnetic rack. Gustav laughs, thinking it's a meaningless act of defiance. But Beatrice had already secured Isabel's gun, having tricked Aiden earlier.
She doesn't use the knife.
No.
She uses the firearm. She shoots Gustav point blank in the chest. This is the necessary violent pivot she prepared for adopting the tactics of the oppressor.
She finds Isabel in the parlor, who pulls her taser, a psychological weapon that is useless against the physical reality of a bullet. Beatrice shoots her multiple times.
As Lou emerges, she wounds him.
And Aiden. He's forced to hand over his phone. She fires at his truck tires to slow him down, but first, she screams his full, real name, Bernest Eubank, at him, demanding his compliance and confirming her knowledge of his greatest secret.
That shout, Bernest Eubank, is the moment she takes ultimate power. She is no longer just Beatrice. She is the one who knows his identity and controls his fate. In that swift, brutal sequence, 3 of her captors are dead or dying.
Beatrice, Sadiq, and Jackie pile into the mover's SUV, which ironically is GPS-enabled, providing her with the navigation she needs. They realize the remote location is in Alberta, Canada, and Beatrice immediately takes command, establishing a cover story. She is Miss Meadows, their teacher, and they are on a field trip. She is instantly synthesizing an official narrative to protect them.
This is her rapid rule-making ability on display. She understands that the key to freedom isn't just distance. It's presenting a believable, authoritative front to legitimate law enforcement.
They drive until they reach the U.S. consulate in Calgary. Covered in blood and grime, Beatrice insists on an emergency appointment. She trusts the U.S. government just enough, but tells the consular officer, Melissa Chandra, she is not ready to discuss the escape details without protection. And the identity reveals are staggering. Sadiq is Amir Sadiq bin Abdulaziz bin Salman Al Saud. Jackie is Miss Wang. And the ultimate punch to the gut. Beatrice ensures the ambassador is presented with a missing person poster for Ernest Eubank, age 11, age progressed to 18, confirming Aiden's long history as a victim of the same organization. The immediate aftermath is a blur of intense scrutiny, primarily managed by the CIA. After the children are secured and sent home, Beatrice refuses to cooperate with the consular officer until she gets a lawyer.
Her rabid insistence on legal counsel shows how deeply she has learned the lessons of exploitation. She refuses to be vulnerable again.
She's interrogated by George, whom she correctly pegs as CIA, named after George H.W. Bush Sr.
And George tries to persuade her by pointing out that the shootings occurred in Canada, implying the U.S. might not prosecute. But Beatrice is focused on survival, not amnesty.
She negotiates her terms for cooperation. An arranged phone call with her stepmother, Cynthia, a new passport, and, most crucially, a sealed identity change, new name, new social security number. She is operating like a savvy negotiator, understanding the currency of her story.
And during the debriefing, George reveals two critical, unsettling, and unresolved pieces of information.
What are they?
First, a photo of the house burned down. Beatrice is unable to recall whether she turned off the stove, leaving open the possibility that she, in her violent escape, or possibly Ernest afterward, caused the destruction.
So there's this lingering moral uncertainty about her final actions.
Exactly. And second, he shows her photos of 3 graves she had previously noted in the woods, not just the Tumidu and Lixu she had accounted for. This confirms there was an unknown, undocumented victims organization. The scope of they expands even after she has escaped.
Her reconnection with her family is tentative. She calls her stepmother, Cynthia, in San Diego, asking, "Can I come home?" And Cynthia provides this small, bizarre detail. The FBI only got involved because a pizza delivery guy who traced Beatrice's abandoned distress call escalated the issue.
It just highlights the reliance on absurd luck and the failure of official systems to quickly catch high-level trafficking operations.
Beatrice settles into a semblance of normalcy in San Diego, living with Cynthia and taking a quiet job making macarons. But her survival tools remain close. She maintains contact with George via a designated 202 number and keeps Gustav's gun, wrapped in an apron, as security, a terrifying, constant reminder of the violence she perpetrated.
And she also receives a profound material acknowledgement of her actions. A $40,000 Cartier wristwatch from the Emir of Saudi Arabia, Sadiq's father.
Wow.
This gift symbolizes her value as a rescuer, yet it also underlines the immense, high-stakes world she violently intersected with.
But the threat isn't gone. George confirms the lingering danger by sending a plainclothes operative, Todd, to stake out Cynthia's house, referring to Beatrice as bait.
So she remains a person of interest, and the organization is still active.
This constant surveillance, this realization that she is still bait, ensures her ultimate trauma is isolation. She knows she has too many secrets, the violence, the video, the moral compromises, to share fully.
She measures her life in terms of before and after the kidnapping, understanding that true, trusting intimacy or a normal, close relationship may be impossible.
And this isolation is shattered years later by the unexpected reappearance of Ernest Eubank. He arrives at Cynthia's 61st birthday party, using the constructed identity of Lee Harris, complete with a mustache and a new life.
His story of survival is equally complex and brutal. He drove Isabel's car to Vancouver, and, in his own words, sucked dick all down the West Coast to secure the necessary funds.
He eventually found a sugar daddy, Edgar, who provided an apartment, car, and new ID.
And in a strange final detail of his time at the house, he reveals he rescued Isabel's koi fish and sold them in Vancouver. It's an act of petty, transactional closure.
He admits he's stalking her because he missed her and wanted to be sure you were safe.
The reckoning is immediate. They're 2 damaged souls relying on constructed identities to survive. Ernest confesses he feels less than a whole person and is still burdened by the guilt of not helping her escape earlier.
Their meeting forces an acknowledgement of the truth. Their relationship, though it was born out of the manipulation of the finesse setup and the intense pressure of captivity, evolved into something genuine based on shared suffering and mutual vulnerability.
But the peace is fleeting. George calls Beatrice. He reveals he knows Lee Harris is Ernest Eubank and wants Beatrice to convince him to talk about they. The CIA wants Ernest's institutional knowledge to take the organization down.
This puts Beatrice in an impossible position. She has to choose between her civic duty to stop a powerful, malicious organization and her obligation to protect the one person who understands her trauma and who has finally secured a fragile peace.
And she refuses to ask Ernest to compromise his new life. She chooses to protect him, despite the continuing risk to herself.
So what does this all mean? We've traced Beatrice Meadows' comprehensive narrative, which isn't just a story of kidnapping, but an exploration of institutional failure and psychological warfare.
It really is.
The story highlights how vulnerabilities, Beatrice's father's dismissal of her, the lack of support for people like Riley, or the system that allowed runaways like Ernest to disappear, created the perfect environment for an organization like they to thrive.
The system of control we witnessed was profoundly insidious. It wasn't primarily based on locks and bars, but on psychological manipulation, forcing moral compromise, exemplified by the Aiden-Burness dynamic, and ensuring that every hostage remained completely isolated, convinced that rescue was impossible and that betrayal was inevitable.
From this brutal journey, 3 key takeaways really stand out for me. First, survival often mandates the adoption of the oppressor's tactics. Beatrice's transformation into a decisive, violent actor and her ability to instantly create and enforce rules at the consulate were necessary components of her liberation.
Second, trauma creates profoundly isolating secrets. Both Beatrice and Ernest achieved physical freedom, but the compromises they made, the violence, the sexual coercion, the emotional shutoff, cannot be shared with those who haven't experienced it.
Which necessitates the creation of new identities and an inability to achieve true intimacy or peace, even with their loved ones.
That's right.
And finally, the fight for freedom doesn't conclude with escape. It is followed by an uncertain future where past compromises constantly resurface. Both protagonists are weighed down by the violence they endured and the violence they inflicted, knowing that the enemy is likely still out there.
And this leaves us with a provocative thought for you, the learner, concerning the nature of survival and moral obligation. Beatrice's violent escape secured her freedom, but George, the CIA agent, demands that Ernest betray his hard-won peace to provide the intelligence necessary to fight they. Ernest stated, "The truth is, I want to live." When facing a powerful and seemingly endless enemy, is the moral obligation to fight that enemy greater than the right to finally find personal peace and self-preservation? It is a calculus that survivors must reckon with every single day.